He was playing softball with his buddy Neil Heaton. He actually was filling in for his college buddy Neil Heaton. At this point, Larry is done with school. He's doing his student teaching, doing driver's ed and some other things at a high school, local high school. So Larry's playing out in the outfield, and his brother hits this kind of spinning, looping ball, almost like a Tim Wakefield knuckleball. It's just spinning all over the place. And Larry tries to go down and make a basket catch, and his finger goes all the way back, and he's like, man, wow, it really hurts. And he looked down, and his finger was completely dislocated and mangled, and, you know, it really was bothering him. He had to stop playing right away, and his brother came over and almost vomited just looking at him. It was really, really bad. You know, they took him to the emergency room. They strapped it up, they taped it up, and whatever. He's been drafted by the Celtics during this point, but he has not signed a contract yet. So his finger is in a bad way. He has to have major surgery with clips put in and pins and everything else, and he never tells the Celtics this has happened. But, you know, sooner or later they get word, and they summon him to Boston, and the trainer examines him and says, and the team doctor examines him, and they say to Red Auerbach, this guy's damaged goods. Red's like, really? So he says, come on, Larry, get dressed. So Larry puts on his stuff. Red throws him the ball. He goes out. He starts shooting from all over the floor. He's hitting from everywhere. Throws him a few bounce passes, has him throws a few overhead passes, and he said, you look fine to me, kid. And Bird said, great. But Bird to this day will tell you he's never had the same feel for the basketball since he injured that finger. He said, I've never been able to feel the ball quite the same way again. So as great as he was in the NBA, pre-softball career, Larry Bird might have even been greater.
If there had been a Game 7, would you have been available to play?
No.
Really?
No, I was done pretty much. I mean, I struggled to pull it through in that game, and I suffered from it, still suffering from it. But I wouldn't have played in a Game 7. I just wasn't able to go. I mean, I knew on Saturday that, you know, I probably had one game left in me. And the start of that game, I got a dunk early in the game and got banged a little bit by Malone. And that really put me back on my heels throughout that whole game, where I was running back in the locker room, cortisone, whatever kind of medication I could get in me, heat pack, whatever, to carry on. But I definitely was not able to play a Game 7.
And you know the way it works with us in the media. When Michael Jordan would get sick in a playoff game, we make it seem like he came from his hospital bed with IV stuck in his arm. And
it's in the book.
And he has these great accomplishments. But for you, that is pretty remarkable what you did. Again, I'm not saying you're doing it for people to give you credit, but do you feel that not enough was made of that moment? Because there you were playing hurt in a deciding game against a great Utah Jazz team.
Here's my breakdown on that. I'm going to ask you this.
All right.
Is it easier to play with a herniated disc or to play with the flu?
They always say the worst injury to have is a bad back. So,
well, I don't see many bad back games, but I do see flu games. Flu.
The 2015 NBA playoffs. Grizzlies eliminate Portland in 5 games. That's the good news. Bad news is Mike Conley in Game 3 suffers massive facial fractures courtesy of a C.J. McCollum elbow. Doesn't play Game 1 at Golden State. Game 2, he decides to play. It will be forever known, Chris, as the broke face game.
It will be the broken face game. And number one, Dad doesn't want him to play, Mom doesn't want him to play, wife doesn't want him to play, and he came back way too early. And I think Conley could not take it watching after game number 1. And if it was possible he could play, he was going to play. So that one will be ingrained in my mind forever. But it was, I mean, it's an all-time Grizzlies performance that will be virtually impossible to duplicate.
It wasn't just the facial fracture and the pain, it was the pain meds causing him nausea. He couldn't even eat.
He couldn't eat, yes. I was there too. I was on an assignment for ESPN nationally, and I remember talking to Mike about how the thing was they had to get the right mask to fit first of all, and then the problem was before that game, the swelling didn't go down enough. So the eye was still protruding out to where he couldn't get the mask to fit comfortably. That's the only reason why he didn't push the play in game, the game before that. Mm-hmm. So when he finally got out there, it was, he was on cloud 9. I mean, just that game he talked about, as you said, Chris, afterwards, I had to basically, disobey my mom. And that was the hardest part about, deciding to play in that game.
I can't imagine a more courageous performance by anybody because, like I said, the pain, the mask, the fact that he wasn't eating or sleeping, I mean, I don't know that you're right. I don't think you can really even top this.
I mean, when you team up, coming back with a broken face, playing one of the greatest teams ever in their arena, and then being the best player on the floor for a good measure of time that you're out there,
Yeah, in an insanely loud building,
Yes.
which aggravated some of the pain and discomfort that Mike was feeling.
It did, and just to see how that game was sort of the catalyst for what happened the game after that. The Grizzlies were up 2-1 in that series. They had control of that series, and then another injury happens to Tony Allen at the end of Game 4, and that takes them out of the series there with the hamstring. But what Mike Conley did was infuse this organization with a lot of confidence. It's one of those situations where the Grizzlies were on the cusp of something great because of the courageousness that Mike Conley played with that broken face.